In Galatians chapter 4 and verse 4, we read, "But when the fullness of time had come, God sent forth his Son, born of woman, born under the law." The fullness of time was the right time for the Son of God to be born on earth. In the book of Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar dreamt of a large statue made of a gold head, silver chest and arms, bronze belly and thighs, and iron legs. Each of these metals is progressively less valuable and represents a different kingdom. From our vantage point in history, we now know the four kingdoms are first of all the Babylonian, then the Medo-Persian, the Greek, and then the Roman empires. Each great kingdom would be overtaken by a seemingly less powerful kingdom, which would all ultimately fail, but Christ's kingdom, established at the end of these, will last forever. The first mention of Babylon comes in Genesis chapter 10, the table of nations which traces the descendants of Noah's three sons. The Tower of Babel is found in Genesis 11. This event cements Babylon's reputation as a city of rebellion against God. From then on, the biblical writers consistently use Babylon as a symbol of evil and defiance. You can read more on such things in 1 Peter 5 and verse 13 and Revelation 17 and verse 5. No king surpassed the glory and absolute power of Nebuchadnezzar II. Nebuchadnezzar appointed Zedekiah to rule Judah. However, Zedekiah, against the prophet Jeremiah's counsel, joined the Egyptians in a revolt in 589 BC. This resulted in Nebuchadnezzar's return. The remaining Jews were deported, Jerusalem was burned, and the temple was destroyed in 587 or 586 BC. And you can read the details of the prophecy in Jeremiah 52 verses 1 to 30. Just as God had promised through the prophet Jeremiah, God judged the Babylonians for their sins, and the Babylonian Empire fell to the armies of Persia in 539 BC, once again proving the truth of God's word. Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Daniel all prophesied that the Medes and the Persians would overtake the Babylonian Empire. Jeremiah provides the reason was to destroy Babylon and gain vengeance for God's temple. Again, in Jeremiah 51 and verse 11, you can read those words. Before the Babylonian exile even began, God told Jeremiah that Judah would become a desolate wasteland, and these nations will serve the king of Babylon 70 years. Jeremiah 25 and verse 11. Ezra and others recorded that in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, 539 BC, in order to fulfill the word of the Lord spoken by Jeremiah, the Lord moved the heart of Cyrus, and Cyrus allowed all the Jews to return to Judah. You can read about that in Ezra chapter 1 and verse 1. Not only did Cyrus release the Jews, but he also returned the stolen temple articles and paid for the Jews' rebuilding efforts from the royal treasury. Ezra chapter 6 verses 4 and 5. This was a monumental time in Israel's history, as Jerusalem and the temple were rebuilt, and the law was reinstituted. After the Babylonian captivity, the nation of Israel would never again be corrupted by the idolatry and false gods of the surrounding nations. A revival among the Jews took place after the return to Israel and the rebuilding of the temple. The name of Alexander the Great never appears in the Bible. However, the prophets Daniel and Zechariah wrote prophecies concerning Greece and Alexander's Macedonian Empire. Born in 356 BC and dying 32 years later, he only reigned for 13 years. His conquest of nearly the entire known world resulted in one of the largest empires in ancient history. Alexander overthrew the entire Persian Empire, from Asia Minor, Persia, Egypt, and everything in between, including Israel. Alexander died undefeated in battle, but without a clear heir, which led to the division of his empire among 4 of his generals. Although Alexander's empire split, the culture that he spread continued. Greek became the universal language, and Greek culture was either required or encouraged in all parts of the divided empire. Israel later gained its independence from 167 to 63 BC, a time referred to as the Hasmonean period, named after that particular leader of that particular area. And it's recorded in the apocryphal books, that is, the books that were written between the Old and New Testaments of 1st and 2nd Maccabees. The end of this period was marked by the Roman conquest of Jerusalem in 63 BC. Once the Romans had finished conquering all the lands, they brought peace, the Pax Romana. Piracy on the seas was ended. Roads which were built to ease journey from one part of the kingdom to another were policed and safe to walk. The universal language continued to be Greek, so people could communicate wherever they went. What better time for the Christ to be born? The good news of his birth, life, and death could be spread with relative ease without mobile phones and the internet. How great is our God that at the right time God sent forth his Son to redeem the world. Kingdoms rise and fall, but God holds the future, and his word and his kingdom stands forever.